Right before she died of a drug overdose, I had no idea she was taking drugs.
It gets you addicted. I mean, I started out like any drug, just doing it once a week. Then it became twice a week. Then it became almost every night, smoking a little bit. Then it became waking up with it, doing it all day long.
I didn't get to see my daughter, but her dad did.
He was a heroin addict. He, had struggled with heroin for a long time, but he had been clean for a year.
I'm just thinking to myself, like, God, why? Why did you drive?
I looked to the left and I saw like this white truck, and I couldn't say no. I said, I go, oh Jesus, like that, and it hit us.
You will be convicted of a felony if you're caught selling this stuff.
And what you don't really realize is that you're putting your life in danger and everybody else around you in danger, and it's just not worth it.
It was 8 minutes from the time the officer left, and that my daughter was killed.
Broke my back at T12, severed my spinal cord, had a punctured lung, a torn diaphragm, and several broken ribs, and that's what left me paralyzed at the waist, and we got a speeding ticket. That's it.
Hi, folks. Here we are live in the afternoon at 4 o'clock Central Time. I thought it would be a good time to try out some new arrangements that we've made, just some subtle changes in the way that we have things set up here when we do the lives. We're actually using a different lens for one, and some different software stuff. So I would really value a little bit of feedback, Brianna, if this looks normal, if everything looks about right to you guys. I would appreciate knowing that, or if you see anything that seems a little bit peculiar, I'd like to know about that as well. But, open to talking about whatever. Always open to talking about whatever. So it's just kind of a surprise live thing. We're probably not going to be here all that long, but wanted to know if, hey, Mary, thanks for being here. Wanted to know if everything looked okay. A little bit of a change. There's a few changes going on. And just wanted to share those with you guys and see if everything is working right before we have a live event after a premiere. So far, so good. That's good. That's probably good enough. That's all we need to know. I really didn't know what to expect in terms of viewers during the afternoon. Most of our live broadcasts lately have been in the evening, somewhere around 7 or 8 o'clock and at Central Time. And so wanted to see what happened. So I see Orangutan is here, and that's cool. Audio could be louder. All right. So I can there's an adjustment on the mic. I can turn it up a little bit. Is that better? That there's finding a level that is a good volume without drawing in ambient sound that's elsewhere in the that's elsewhere in Texas Pictures World Headquarters here. And so, Brianna, did that change anything? I turned it up a little bit. It's being nitpicky, though. Nitpicky. Okay, nitpicky's fine. I have a kind of have a tendency to speak a little softly because there's other people in the building. You know. So did it get any better? Does it sound too loud? Is all good here? All right, cool. So here we are. I see right now we have 18 people in the live event. So is there first off, I want to ask, is there any questions? Anyone have any questions for Texas Pictures about our fentanyl stories or about the human trafficking stories, addiction recovery stories, any of that stuff? Or the upcoming stuff like the cannabis-induced psychosis series that we're going to be shooting in Denver in June. What kind of questions are out there? Crazy Coons, good day. And to all in the chat, good, glad you're here. So, good day. Help me remember, are you in Australia? Is that right? It seems like it. And the whole good day thing is sort of a giveaway. So what time is it where you're at? I don't think so, Brianna. It's not, I wouldn't say most of the victims, but most of the victims, but a large percentage are under 21. And so some are 7 a.m. Wow. Well, good morning. So the ages range in our series, the ages range from, I believe the oldest is, I know that one is 58 years old. And I feel like there's one that was 60s, mid 60s. And yeah, 7 a.m. Wednesday. That's cool. So you're in the future. We are talking to the future. Yeah, that's cool. Anyway, so the age ranges range. There's one that's 58. There's another one that was 56 or 55. There's one that was mid 60s, I believe. And then there's a couple that were under the age of 5. There's one that was 15 months. So I don't really know how many are under the age of 21. It feels like, I don't know, maybe a third, but I'm really just guessing. All of the thumbnails have the victim's age on them, but we don't really have records that go into that kind of detail. We have the forms that all the storytellers fill out that identify the age, but we don't have a way. It's not, as much as it sounds like a good idea, we're not building some sort of database that we could search or we could do research with in terms of age or race or any of that with our victims. Our victims, the victims in our stories, we don't have victims. The stories have victims. So I am sorting out Okay. I'm sorting out how this software works and how the lens I'm using right now works. Does the color look right to you guys? So I did want to take a few minutes to talk about some of the comments that we get on our channel, on some of our stories. Most of the comments, the vast majority of the comments that we get are wonderful, supportive, constructive, empathetic kinds of comments. But holy cow, once in a while there'll be some sort of comment that isn't appropriate. You know, so there are comments that you don't want to dominate the chat. It'd be okay if you did. There are some comments that we delete, and they fit within a specific category, you know, that or a specific set of categories for us to delete them. If it is hurtful toward the storyteller, doesn't matter if it might be true. If it is hurtful toward the storyteller, we delete it. If there is hostility in the way that it is hurtful toward the storyteller, we may delete it, or we may block the commenter from making further comments on our channel, because that kind of hurtful perspective just doesn't have any value. There is no sense in hearing comments from someone who is just angry at something that doesn't really have anything to do with us. And so the other kinds of things that we typically delete are things that involve name calling. That there again, it's the same kind of thing, that having just getting on and calling people names, calling them stupid or things like that, things that are just derogatory and again valueless. We will delete those. We do not delete political stuff. Doesn't really have any value either, typically, because the political stuff typically is in the fentanyl stories, and you know, this fentanyl crisis began in 2013. So making it out as if it is Biden's fault or Trump's fault or Obama's fault, for that matter, that's just ridiculous. It started in 2013. Let me see. In 2013, the CDC identified fentanyl in illicit drugs. Fentanyl. Sorry. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services declared this a public health emergency in 2017. Deaths from illicit fentanyl have increased dramatically, consistently, for the last 12 years. Regardless of change in administration or border policy. That's just the facts. The crisis spans 4 administrations and includes both parties. And so comments that make one administration or another, or one party or another, the bigger villain, aren't realistic, aren't paying attention to the facts. The simple fact is both parties have had bites at this apple, and they didn't. Okay, so there's usually a sexual component that's overlooked or unknown in the fentanyl stories. Probably. There is usually a sexual component to a lot of things that happen in adolescence. It's another taboo kind of thing. It's a stigmatized kind of thing even. And so people aren't so comfortable disclosing information about those kinds of things. Except there are some exceptions. But that can be a driving force that leads people to take chances and to party or whatever. David Hamby got a bullet wound, but the storyteller didn't expound how he got it. David Hamby. That was just a story or two ago, right? Yeah, I believe the story has something about it. David was. I'm gonna look, make sure I'm talking about the right story here. But I believe that right. David went to, hello K9. Thank you for being here. David went to someone's house who was a dealer, someone who he was told had Percocets, and it was him and a few other guys, and the guy who lived there was significantly impaired and being reckless, and he came out with a loaded gun and started playing some sort of Russian roulette kind of game. And at some point, David, he was seated with his legs crossed, and he got shot in the legs. The bullet went through both legs and exited the other side. It was as ideal of a wound as it could have been, but actually 4 wounds. And so it was the dealer, the guy who lived there. I think it was his grandmother's house actually, and he was just being stupid with a firearm. So what other questions you guys have for me here? Let me see where we're at. We have a few people here. I appreciate you guys being here very much. So I was talking about the comments that we delete. Yeah, I think it did at some point in the story. So I was talking about the kind of comments we delete, and some of the comments are just, well, so we delete name calling, we delete comments that are racist, we delete comments that are hurtful toward the storyteller, comments that are obscene or, inappropriate. And that's really about it. Political comments, and I don't like deleting comments at all. But we are protective of the storytellers, and they are first priority for us. And so if there's something hurtful for them, we're probably going to delete it when we see it. Love and Lights. Hello, F417H. That's not Jody, right? That's not the name. I don't remember the name. It happens. I hear from so many people, and very grateful for it. So F4, what I would just call it F4, like the fighter jet. How's that? That seems like a good thing. So that's the kind of things that we delete. We also have some comments that are really common. We hear from people a lot who will. He called me Superman. Yeah, you're killing me. You're killing me. Yeah, I might be just flying around the house, flying around Texas Pictures World Headquarters. That's very kind. So, other kind of things that comment wise, we get a lot of comments. I'm just going through some notes I have here. We get a lot of comments from people that are defending marijuana. A lot of our storytellers will at some point near the beginning of their story say, well, it started with weed. And that tends to draw comments from marijuana users who come to the defense of marijuana. And so that's just a common thing. Now I can tell you this, and their comments sometimes make really great points. Sometimes they're just real simple comments like, yeah, but what about alcohol? Alcohol is worse than weed, or things like that like that's not really relevant if it's worse than weed or not. There's not enough research to know for sure if it's worse. It probably is worse, but what they're saying isn't based on science. But here's what I've noticed about comments from people defending weed is that the comments themselves are far, far more likely to contain misspelled words. It's just the thing. It's not. There's always going to be some misspellings because of predictive text and speech to text and things like that. But it is a lot more common. I would say typically 1 comment in 5 on our channel will have some clear mistaken spelling, some clear indicator, some error that is clearly the commenter's error. The comments that are defending weed, that goes from being the average of around 1 in 5 to being a one at like every other one and two. That it's reasonable to say that half the comments that come from people defending marijuana have misspellings or grammatical errors that indicate not understanding what the right way to communicate something is. It's just something I've noticed. I'm not drawing any conclusions. I'm just saying. So, but the thing about weed is, with the stories on our channel that involve victims that are under the age of 25, there is significant research that finds that. So I'll do it. I'll tell you this way, that according to the Mayo Clinic, marijuana use among adolescents and young adults can affect normal brain development, leading to problems in learning, memory, coordination, reaction time, and judgment. Excessive and frequent use of marijuana is associated with a range of emotional problems. The CDC says marijuana has been linked to a range of mental health problems such as depression and social anxiety. People who use marijuana are more likely to develop temporary psychosis and long-lasting mental disorders, including schizophrenia. The association between marijuana and schizophrenia is stronger in people who start using marijuana at an earlier age and use marijuana more frequently. That's what the CDC says. It's not what I say. It's what CDC says. So you can conclude if they have some sort of agenda with that. I bet you guys hear that dog barking. It happens. So for myself, alcohol got me into a lot of trouble. Ganja made me lazy and demotivated. It's a thing, right? That demotivation, sense of, or laziness. That's something that you hear about kind of regular. If you think of someone who smokes a lot of weed, that's the image that comes to mind, is someone who is unmotivated, lethargic, that kind of thing. That's a thing that pops into your head. I have got too much going on these screens, I can tell you that. So another comment that we hear a lot is that fentanyl is part of the depopulation agenda. And I can't see that. A depopulation agenda. The people in power, the people who have the most power, also make the most money off of the general public, the population. And so thinking that they want to depopulate the world or depopulate the country just doesn't make any sense. There's no motive. But of course, anyone watching, feel free to argue with me. I think that would be cool. So the point about alcohol, there is frequently comments that say alcohol's worse, and what about alcohol? And here's what I can say about that. Prohibition didn't work, and that's a popular comment from people who support legalization of marijuana. And that's correct. It didn't work. It didn't work at all. It backfired in a major way. It led to a lot of organized crime that is still around today. But so it didn't work. But repealing it hasn't worked either. According to the CDC, excessive alcohol use was responsible for more than 140,000 deaths in the United States each year during 2015 to 2019. That's more than 380 deaths per day. That's more than fentanyl. So let me see where I'm at in the chat. Thank you for telling all these stories. From Tony. Tony, you're a new name. I don't remember seeing your name before. Thank you very much for being here. You say, I do believe that weed is a gateway drug. Yeah, I think so too, sort of. If not a gateway drug, it is certainly a flag. Because especially in states where it isn't legal, whatever source, whatever hookup, whatever plug a user has for weed, that source also has other drugs, other illicit substances that are available. So that right there is a gateway. But I think that the bigger gateway is trauma, unresolved trauma. So someone who is suffering, dealing with unresolved trauma, when they try weed or alcohol, they find a little bit of relief for that unresolved trauma. And so they kind of embrace the idea of continuing to use whatever substance it is. And at some point, some of them decide to move farther with it and move on to other drugs. Crazy Coons totally agrees. Orangutan, it is all bad, period. No one is better than any other. Of course. And that is something that happens, you know, when we have these storytelling summits where we travel to whatever part of the country and we set up somewhere for usually a couple of days, and people come by and share their story with us. When people come by and share their story with us, there is some hanging out time. There's a place where they wait while whatever interview is ahead of them finishes. And so in that hanging out time, they connect with each other and they bond, and everybody grows. There's this great magic that happens just off camera, just over there in the background. And they stay connected after the event a lot of times. We have a private Facebook group called Texas Picture Storytellers, and in that group is virtually all of the storytellers on our channel, plus all the people who have contacted us who want to share their story whenever we get to their area. And so that private Facebook group has been gold for us because it's a great way to stay connected with all of our storytellers, and that is what we use it for. So anyone who would like to share their story, that is a great way to stay connected with us, because everything that happens, all of the summits that we have are announced there first. So if anyone who wants to join the group, you need to message me on Facebook. That's the easiest way. Friend me on Facebook, send me a message, and let me know that you want to be in the group, and I'll get you in. I got connections to get you in. So let me see if I can catch up here. I used to think I was self-medicating. It was just an easy way to block out unresolved trauma. Tony, I always comment on a lot of your videos, and those comments, they mean a lot. They really mean a lot, not just to me, not just to Texas Pictures. They mean a lot to the storyteller. Storytellers tend to really thoroughly go through comments, and they get a lot out of it. They get this sense of not being alone, sense of there being a lot of support out there for them, and just this sense that there's humans out there. There's people who care. Brenda. Hi, Brenda. I was a latecomer to addiction due to a back injury. I took my emotional world being rocked to its core by Glenn and the storytellers before I put fentanyl down. But you did. And you're at, what did you say? I think yesterday, 260 something days. Is that, am I remembering that right? Brenda says, Tony, I'm sorry for your spouse. I'm sorry your spouse was poisoned by fentanyl. Your strength is amazing. It is. It is the resilience that so many of the storytellers I've met, so many of the bereaved parents. Okay, see, come on, Brenda, that's close. I was close, right? I think that's cool. I was pretty close. So I knew there was a 6 in it. Yesterday it would have been 256. So see, there you go. Anyway. My 11-year-old knew not to lay him on his back so he wouldn't choke from watching videos on YouTube. That's way cool. You know, we have a cartoon about how to administer naloxone. It's called A Walk in the Park. And it's an actual cartoon. If you ever get a chance to make a cartoon, I would recommend not. Holy cow. Cartoons are crazy amount of work. But it's totally cool to have done it. And we'll be doing more of them. Top day is my belly button birthday, so I can say I got clean when I was 57. Sounds much longer than 8+ months. Top day is my belly button what? Belly button birthday? Is that, should I know this term? Maybe I should get out more, but that's a new term to me. Belly button birthday. And I suppose the belly button is a result of birth, but I don't know what to make of that. What a smart 11-year-old. For sure, Tony. For sure. That kind of it's not just smart, it's motivated. It's being in that place in his head that is human enough to want to help people. That's way cool. It is all kind of there is, I'll just share with you guys a little bit. There is, in front of me, there's 3 video screens that I'm looking at, computer, another computer. And so it is, okay. Okay, that's good. That makes sense. Belly button is the day you were separated from your mother's womb, as opposed to those of us who have a clean and sober birthday. That certainly makes sense. Mary says, yay. Thank you for being here, Mary. Appreciate you being here. And Tony, thank you so much. He also sent his sister out of the house so she wouldn't see her dad like that, and she was 9. There's a real, that's awesome. That's a level of heroic thinking, or heroic. I don't even know how to describe it, but that is totally impressive. Mary, how are you doing today? I was just lurking until Glenn had to fire me up about fentanyl used as a population control. Yeah. Yeah, I have a hard time with that one. The depopulation agenda. It doesn't make any sense, because the people who would have the power to administer an agenda like that are also the people who profit most from people. Brianna, I missed your comment about resolving trauma. Whose comment about resolving trauma? Was that me? Look at this. We have 15 people right now in the chat, and we have 14 thumbs ups. I don't think we've ever had that ratio before. So that's cool. So Mary and Brenda, do you guys talk outside of the chat? You guys connected, keep in touch, all that cool stuff? See, I'm just nosy. I'm just going to ask. There is no profit from junkies. Now, rehabs, there is the real criminals. Yes, I have heard that about some rehabs, maybe quite a few, that their priority is misplaced. But there is profit from junkies, because rehabs do. Defense attorneys do. Public defenders do. And so there is the money gets real complicated. There are a few good rehabs like ACC and Hazel Draw, and the rest are suspicious. Yeah, one of our stories, somewhere in the episode 160 range, we have a story that is about, well, it's about a victim, but it addresses rehab brokers. And rehab brokers are the ones that, I'm awake. The ones that the storyteller talks about. I'd never heard of rehab brokers before, but the one the storyteller talked about actually gave their loved one money after he got out of rehab, gave him money to go have a good time, and in the morning test dirty so he could get back into rehab and have a place to stay. That's crazy. That's evil. So here's another thing that we hear about quite a bit. We get comments from people now and then who say, where was all this concern during the crack epidemic? And golly, there was concern. There was no YouTube. There was no social media of any kind. But there was definitely concern. The crack epidemic was in the news every day. The crack epidemic was called an epidemic. No one has ever been locked up for being on crack or any other drug. It isn't illegal to be on drugs. People go to jail for dealing or possession. No one has ever gone to jail for being on drugs. They've gone to jail for public intoxication. But that's not about being on drugs. That's about being being unmanageable in public. So people went to jail for dealing and possession, just like with fentanyl. Law enforcement, legislative communities, medical communities, addiction communities all responded to the crack epidemic in substantial ways, similar to the fentanyl response. Many treatment centers, rehab clinics were first established because of crack. In fact, much of the response to the fentanyl crisis was based on what we as a culture learned from the crack epidemic. But there are differences. People who used crack knew they were using crack, which is a big difference. And crack didn't kill anywhere near the number of people that fentanyl has. And holy cow, the crack epidemic happened 30 years ago. Everything is different from how it was 30 years ago. We evolve. The world evolves. Cultures evolve. Countries evolve. What is another word for mandatory detox? I do not know. When I hear it, I'll say, oh yeah, that's it. I know there is court ordered. So Brenda, I like your idea about going undercover into rehabs and expose them. I suppose that there's probably people in rehabs who would help. Before my husband died, from Tony, before my husband died, I was also on one. And I would tell him about them, and for him to go in that way was insane. I never thought I would need Narcan because no one used in our home. Tony says, I have tons of Narcan now, and I pass it on anytime I can. All right, since we're talking about Narcan, I have to do my little thing that I always do. Remember that Narcan is a brand name, not a drug. The drug in Narcan is called Naloxone. And Naloxone is also available in products like Cloxato and a bunch of generic versions that are 100% equally effective. So I always like to show this. This is 5 different versions of Naloxone. One of them says Narcan. The other, this is 6 different versions. 5 of them do not say Narcan anywhere, but they work just the time. I was on a bridge watching your videos. Huh. A bridge. Jail. What are you saying, jail? Is that your word for mandatory detox? Jail? I suppose it would be. My pet peeve. Yeah, a little bit. Just a little bit, because my background is in marketing. And so I know that for the folks who distribute Narcan, that's an awesome victory for them, for it to become the go-to word to describe naloxone. That's a huge victory. That is like calling any tissue a Kleenex. Except this could be a life and death thing. You can imagine 2 guys that are at a party and they're a little bit impaired, and they're looking at their friend sprawled out on the floors. Fingernails and lips are turning blue. He's making this gurgling sound a little bit. He's got pinpoint pupils, and he's not responding to anything. Actually, it would be acetaminophen, not Tylenol. Anyway, so the guy's laying on the floor showing symptoms of an overdose, and the 2 friends that are impaired a little bit are looking at him there, and one of them is saying, yeah, we need Narcan, we need Narcan. And they don't have Narcan, but they have one of these others. Maybe the red box from Walgreens that is a generic, or maybe they have Cloxato. They all work exactly the same. But only one of these boxes say Narcan. And so while they argue about whether or not to try this weird product they've never heard of that's got the name Cloxado on it, the friend just lays there and dies. So that's why I make a big deal out of teaching people the word naloxone. Narcan is such a better word. I know. It totally is. It's easier to say. It has fewer syllables. It is a much better word. But it is not, it's not the only option. And none of us want people to think it's not the only option, right? I had to do a sternum rub on a lady at a red light. I was within seconds of giving her naloxone when she woke up and swung at me. I'm quick, so she missed. Sad, but I saw myself and in her. God bless you all. I don't think it's sad that you saw yourself in her. It seems like you did a really good thing. She didn't understand what was happening when she woke up. When you give someone naloxone, they sometimes wake up quite agitated. I've had an experience when I saved someone from OD only for them to blame me for wrecking their high. Yeah, that happens. When you administer naloxone and it works, and it doesn't always work, it can be too late. So when you give someone naloxone, it is very likely when they come to, it is very likely for them to immediately go into withdrawal. Nobody likes that. Yes, John, we are your friends. We are certainly here for each other. Precipitated withdrawal sucks. I don't blame her for swinging. I know what having a high ruined feels like. Clean feels much finer. Oh, there you go. There is a new product that's being developed, and I've spoken to a couple of the people that are involved in the development, that is longer lasting. It is not naloxone, but it is like naloxone in that it can reverse an opioid overdose. And it's a product that lasts 12 to 18 hours, minimizing that risk of someone becoming, what was the term they used? Renarcanized, something like that. Minimizing the risk of the agent wearing off before the drug that caused the overdose to wear off. How about when someone ODs and others ask, yeah, where'd you get it? So sad how far gone they are, they don't even know it. Like they want to know where you got it because it must have been a good, potent source. Yeah, that's crazy. Congrats, John. What did I miss? Did I miss a comment from John? In a span of 10 years, I lost 12 friends. The last was February 21st, 2025. I'm clean 14 months, but I'm alone because no one is left. Well, John, you're not alone right now. So there's that. That's something. And so you might already know, but we have a series of recovery stories on our channel. You can find it in our playlists. And there's about 42, I believe. 42, 43 addiction recovery stories told by the people who went through it. So you might find some encouragement in that series. Narcan wore off and they fell out again. Yes, we have a couple of stories on our in the fentanyl series that are the same kind of thing. One of them is episode 100, Wade Green's story. He was 19 years old and he was rushed out of the hospital by an attending ER physician who just didn't like dealing with people with drug problems. So she rushed him off. I carry Naloxone too. Now, if I move, look, there it is. There's a box of it right there. Let me get out of the camera and maybe it'll. I guess not. But yeah, I have it too. And yeah, this one says Narcan on it. But at different times we have Cloxato or we have some other generic version. Brenda says, I tell them that naloxone is a gift from heaven. If they would like, I can get them some out of the toolbox in my truck. I don't care what people think of my having a life-saving agent. Brenda says, I carry it too. Crazy, when they get clean, they will thank you for caring. I know I am still working on thanking all the people who didn't give up on me, even though I had given up on myself. Brenda Miller says, unfortunate that she passed away. There's also a storyteller lost her son to the hospital, just discharging her too soon. Yeah, one of those is Wade Green's story. The storyteller is Megan Ledoux. And I believe there's another story or two that are similar kind of circumstances where the victim is discharged and the naloxone wears off. I used Narcan Thursday night. Oops. Oh, wow. I just hit the wrong button and golly. I don't know what all I did here. I used Narcan Thursday night. We lived together, so I'm right in the middle of the fight. So you're like kind of like a sponsor. So being there, having that accountability and that and that encouragement and support, that's a big deal. Crazy, then I am thinking on behalf of all of us addicts and ex-junkies, we need more people like you and less hateful humans stigmatizing our disease. God bless. What a wonderful point. Trying to be a sponsor and source of hope without enabling. That's a big deal. Very important to do that kind of thing. So I just wanted to come on and see what would happen in the afternoon. And this has been really good. I really appreciate you guys coming in without any sort of advance notice and still managing to join us for a visit and to share some stuff. That's really gay. It's trying to be a sponsor. Yeah. And so I really appreciate you guys. Is there any other questions out there? Wade Green's story is saving lives every day from the lessons he taught emergency rooms everywhere. For sure. Now, emergency rooms should already know the lesson from Wade Green's story, but it certainly reinforces it. Thank you, Viola. I don't think I've seen any comments from you yet. So, gosh, thank you for chiming in there, and thank you for the compliment. But it is about time to wrap it up, folks. So, and I always like to remind you all that you're welcome to reach out to me anytime. You can reach out by email or through our website or from Facebook or here on YouTube. We have a presence on. Thank you, K9. Thank you. And gosh, always thank you, Brenda. Thank you for being here. Has anyone heard from V? John, thank you. I watched many videos on this channel. Last time I used IOD, but survived and clean ever since. Like I said, since February. Thanks for the awareness on this channel. And that's awesome, John. Good job. Check out the recovery stories on our channel. You can go to our playlists and you'll find the recovery series. Crazy says, thanks, Glenn. You truly are a godsend. Holy cow, I just feel very blessed, very fortunate to get to do work like this. It's really awesome with all the people that I meet, all the wonderful people full of so much love, yet full of so much pain and struggle. Crazy says, Brenda, keep inspiring others one day at a time. Viola says, good job, John. Stay tuned into this. We'll probably be live again tomorrow afternoon. I'm hoping that we're going to have another story to publish tomorrow there'll be an announcement as soon as it is ready, but we have a little ways to go to have a story ready. So hopefully tomorrow, if not, then Thursday. So that's going to be it for now, folks. John, great minds think alike. I binged TPD during my 16 days of detox. Holy cow, that sounds painful. I felt so awful for willing taking a drug while it was killing innocents, and I hadn't a clue. Well, that's a profound kind of thing to say, Brenda. That's just profound. It bugged me when we first started doing these. It bugged me that I didn't already know enough about fentanyl. As I learned more, I just kept thinking about my granddaughter. So we're going to wrap it up, folks. I want to share with you our typical closing graphic right here that you guys are important. You're important to me, you're important to the channel. You're important. And your relationship with each other is important. So anything we can do to ever facilitate that, and anything we can ever do to help you, we are always open to doing our best to do that. Thank you, John. And so here is the way you can reach us. You can find us by email at info@texas-pictures.com. We're also on Facebook. We're on TikTok, but aren't real swift with the messaging on TikTok. And our website, you can find ways to contact us on our website, texas-pictures.com. So guys, please keep in touch. If you need anything, we are always glad to help. And that's going to be it for this afternoon. Thank you so much, or morning, for the person in Australia. But thank you so much for joining us, and we will talk to you guys next time.